الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء وقال تعالى ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون صدق الله العظيم. Most respected ulama ikram, this is not any waz, any nasihat or anything of the sort to anyone. This is merely just on the hukam to relate whatever little will be possible now with regards to the life of Hazrat Moulana Yunus Patel Sahib Rahmatullah Ali, who was my elder brother, and whatever little that might come is only purely on the note of that inshallah it becomes a means of some benefit for me, benefit for all of us. So this is the niyat with which these few words are being said. As far as Hazrat Moulana Rahmatullah Ali's life was concerned, obviously this is not a biography. This is just some incidents from his life at random. There won't be any real tartib in it also, but just things that as they come to mind, inshallah, all these things will be of some benefit to us. Once somebody mentioned to Hazrat Moulana while towards the latter part of his life, something they mentioned about his biography. So Moulana, in his tawazu, which was really something that Allah Ta'ala had blessed him with tremendously. So his response to that was that my biography will be written on the back of a postage stamp. Meaning that's all you'll get to write. That behind the space behind the postage stamp, that's much you'll be able to write about it. But the reality is very, very different. That indeed volumes can be written. Alhamdulillah, some work has started, some people have started doing something, compiling some things. Allah knows when it will reach its completion because it's such a mammoth task. But indeed volumes can be written about his life. But just some slight glimpses, which inshallah will be a means of some encouragement for us. And alhamdulillah, this is something that is common among all the akabir, all the great ulama ikram, all the mashayikh, all our akabir in fact, that these things that we will discuss, the incidents would differ, but the principal issues are the same. That these sifat are across the board. There's a beautiful kitab, Hazrat Mufti Salman Mansoor Puri Sahib, Dam Barakatuhum. He has written a beautiful kitab titled that Ahlullah ki maqbuliyat ka raz. That the secret behind the maqbuliyat of the Ahlullah. And the khulasa of the whole kitab is that there are certain sifat and qualities which all of these people, they possess these qualities. Then it played out in somebody's life in one way, somebody's life in another way, but the common factor was sifat. Alhamdulillah, in all our present day akabir also, these are the sifat that we see in them. And likewise, as the Moulana Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi, this is the aspect in his life as well, that Allah Ta'ala had blessed him with these sifat. And this is what made him flourish, what made his work flourish. There was tremendous maqbuliyat Allah Ta'ala had granted him. That maqbuliyat was something that was very, very evident, especially in the latter part of his life. What were the asbab of that maqbuliyat is the same sifat, which we will inshallah touch on some of those things. But the level of maqbuliyat was really something that is not very common. Where just to understand it, that after Ma passed away, there were many people, not one or two, many people, who when you would meet them, so they would get talking about Moulana without fail that would happen initially. And many people mentioned this to me, that when I heard about the demise of Hazrat Moulana, so I felt that grief which I didn't feel on the demise of my father or somebody, his mother. But the beauty part of it was, or the ajib part of it, but I had no formal taluk with him. I barely attended some programs once in a while. Maybe some Jummah I was there. I had no formal taluk with him. I was not even closely associated with him. So I myself was surprised that what is this? Fine, he was a very great alim. He was somebody who was of a very high caliber. But I wasn't attached to him closely. I didn't have any close relationship with him. Why am I feeling like this? But this was the effect of that maqbuliyat. In the Hadith Sharif, which is in Mishkat Sharif, etc., where it's mentioned that when Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala loves someone, Allah Ta'ala says to Jibreel Salatu Wasalam, I love so and so, you should also love him. The Jibreel Salatu Wasalam makes the announcement in the heavens that Allah Ta'ala loves so and so, I love him, you also should also love him. Then ثُمَّ يُغْدَعُ لَهُ الْقَبُولُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And then the qabuliyat and acceptance for him descends upon the earth. This qabuliyat that comes from top down, that is true qabuliyat. That which a person tries to garner for himself from down up by trying to get people to support him in some way and convincing people to become mu'taqid of him, etc. in sarahatan, dalalatan, kinayatan, whichever way it might be. That is something which is, there's no reality in it. But that which comes from the side of Allah Ta'ala and which is expressed in this Hadith Sharif, Alhamdulillah, all our Akabir, all our presently Akabir also, we find that same aspect in them. And this was something very, very prominent in the life of Ummah Rahmatullah alayhi. Even in his lifetime, that was a very common thing. People would sometimes, many a times, a person would meet him. He had traveled from Johannesburg for some other purpose. He doesn't know Mama from anywhere. He hadn't come to meet him specifically. But he says, no, I wanted to just come and attend one salah behind him, just hear one of his talks at least. Person is not even somebody very closely, well, what we might say, involved in deen as such. But that was the extent of qabuliyat. After Ma passed away, one of the ulama of Durban had been in England at that time, when that news came of Hazrat's passing away. So he says there was such an outpouring of that same muhabbat there as well. And many people told him that you don't realize that what this had done to our lives. Many people said that our lives revolved around his programs. That the time that those programs are audio streamed, we would know beforehand. And those particular days that the majalis would take place. Says the rest of the day, everything will be juggled around that. That would be the most important part of that day. And any other work, anything that had to be done, if it was something that's going to clash in that time, it would be put aside. Or it would be taken to another time. But that would be given priority. And the whole family would gather around. And all would listen attentively. And he says, you don't know what transformation this brought into our lives. Now people sitting in other corners of the world and where not. And after Azma passed away, I cannot remember the count now of how many emails were received where people are writing now to say, I heard about the passing away of this personality. I hadn't even heard about him while he was alive. But I only got to know about it now. And I have just heard one or two talks of his that I downloaded. I'm finding this the biggest regret of my life that I didn't get to know this person while he was alive. And I'm finding such an impact on my life already. And this was actually something that was a reality, that perhaps the amount of benefit that people took from him in his lifetime, that increased after he passed away. That continued and increased after he passed away via whatever his writings were, his talks that were recorded, etc. So in general, this was, Allah Ta'ala had blessed him with this tremendous maqbuliyat. But as mentioned, this maqbuliyat, this is something attached to sifat. And these sifat, what are these sifat? There are numerous of these sifat. But just in my little understanding, certain things which I think were very, very aspects which had a very profound influence in the whole issue, that were very fundamentally impacting on that maqbuliyat that Allah Ta'ala blessed him with. So some of these things, as they come to mind, as I mentioned, there won't be any tartib in the incidents. Something might be, something that happened in the latter part of his life might come first, and something happened earlier might come last as well. Among the things that come to mind, one is that he took du'as. He took a lot of du'as. He took du'as. He took du'as of our parents. and tremendous du'as. And I believe that that was one of the first things that had such a deep impact. During the latter part of my marhum father's life, there were times when I happened to be there at night after my marhuma mother had passed away. Allah Ta'ala fill their qabrs with nur. So sometimes I would spend the night there. So this was his mamul, tahajjud, etc. And then he would make dua for a long time. And his dua would be in a little bit of a raised voice. So on occasion I had that occasion to overhear the du'as, and in those du'as he would make excessive dua for the Maulana as well, apart from du'as for everybody else. When my marhum father became quite elderly and was a bit sickly also at that time, this was around 85, just the time when I went to Azadmul to study. So he retired from work. He was just working in a shop as an assistant. So it was a very basic salary, but he couldn't continue working, so he had to stop, retire. But there wasn't any form of any income as such now. But as soon as he couldn't work anymore, he decided to stop working. With great haste, the Moulana prepared a separate section alongside his house, where he brought my parents. I had just come away to Azadbal at that time to study, so there was nobody else at home with them. And he actually forced them to come over. They were very independent also in a way. They didn't want to give anybody any taklif, but he insisted, and he created this separate section for them and took care of all their needs, despite himself just being earning as well a salary. Not that he had any big income from his side. So this also was something that, despite whatever his other efforts were, his work was, his busy schedule was, all that, in the last 15 years of their life, they stayed with him. And though on my marhuma mother's insistence, he had the separate kitchen for her, but the house was all joined, and he would go out of his way to take care of them, make their khidmat. So one was the khidmat that he made of his parents, our parents, and the du'as he took from them. And every now and then, my marhuma mother also would hear from her, something or the other, if that subject came up, there would be some du'as. This is something, unfortunately, often we don't understand or don't realize the full benefit of this, or how great this is useful. In any case, that is something tremendously important, and which, mashallah, everybody understands that and takes those du'as as well. Then he took the du'as of many pious people. Now this is one incident which itself brings so many other aspects in it. Besides du'as, there's so many other issues involved in it. Among the many pious people's du'as that he took, one was Hazrat Haji Bhai Paja Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi. The incident of Hazrat Moulana with Hazrat Haji Bhai Paja Sahib Rahmatullah Alayhi, this has been recorded in Haji Bhai Paja Rahmatullah Alayhi's little brief biography that was printed some time ago. But just for that benefit of it, I will repeat it, that when Haji Bhai Paja Rahmatullah Alayhi came back from India after the 4 months for the first time, and introducing the work of Dawat to South Africa. And up to that point, this was something totally unknown in this country. Apart from maybe one or two people, few people who had gone perhaps overseas and might have met Hazrat Yunus Rahmatullah Alayhi at that time and whoever. Otherwise it was unknown. So in any case, when he returned, so in the Grey Street Masjid, which is well-known masjid, at that time it was open to everybody. So Ma'a says that he saw a notice on the board that on certain night, it was the same night or the night after, there will be a talk by Moulana Ghulam Muhammad Padia. He wasn't an alim, but now he went for 4 months and came. This was something unique for everybody, so they thought perhaps he came back as an alim. So this was the title they put it with. In any case, he was somebody that created ulama. He may not have been a formal alim, but he became the means of maybe not hundreds, thousands of ulama. In any case, he saw this, so he said, well, let him participate as well. So Haji Bhai Paja Rahmatullah Alayhi then gave the talk. Since he had a stammer in his voice, so he wasn't very clear. He used to talk, a lot of the good part of the talk was in Gujarati. The audience would understand that. And he was trying to explain the work which was totally unknown to the people, so nobody really understood what he was trying to say. Because it was something totally new. They hadn't heard anything about it. They didn't know what he's getting at. So because it was totally unknown to them, they didn't even understand what he's saying to. Any case, finally the talk was over. So now he started making tashkil, that who's going to assist me in this? Everybody's looking at one another, assist him in this. What does he mean, assist him in this? So Hazrat Maulana says that first it was Hazrat Hari Bhai Rahmatullah's father-in-law, who was an elderly person. He stood up and said, okay, I'll assist you. In any case, he sat down. Now he's asking again, who will assist me? Maulana says that it came in my heart, and now this is the other very prominent quality that was in him. As we started off by saying, came to his heart, he really had a heart. And he had an ajib heart. So he says, it came to my heart, that this person, whatever it is, I also don't understand what he's asking for, what help he wants, but somebody is asking for help. So whatever help he wants, I should offer something. I really don't know what he wants, but how can I just ignore this plea for help? So because somebody was asking for help, he couldn't ignore it. And this was a prominent quality throughout his life. From anyone and everyone, anyone who came for any help, that person never went without some help. Whoever it was, however, whatever, some would come and even pester him repeatedly. Some he would even reprimand them, but they would leave with something too. One day, it was a Sunday morning, there was some mehman he was sitting with at his house, and one old African woman was shouting outside, she was selling something. So she came to the gate, she's selling something. So now it was a Sunday morning at about 10, 11 o'clock. So I came there, so this old lady now, it's a hot morning and she's selling something. So I asked her whatever she's selling. So I asked her, how many do you have of this? So whatever items, number she had, how much it is. So he bought the whole lot. He bought the whole lot and he gave her the money. And he said to her, you see, everybody is today resting with their families. Today you also go rest with your family. So there's the money. And then that mehman was there, he gave him some. He said, now take some more, you give others. But he bought off everything that she had, just so that that shafqat, he was overwhelmed with the shafqat. And it was something difficult for him to pass without doing something for someone. Anybody in need, in fact I can recall, this was very, very long ago, as when I was still in my school days and when I would be sometimes there in Durban. And while passing somebody, total stranger, that time things were a little safer also. Total stranger is hitching a lift. He couldn't pass by, he had to give the person a lift. Sometimes others who were in the, would sort of reprimand him, so to say, or scold him in a sense, that how can you just pick anybody up? You don't know the person from anywhere. You know, I looked, okay, the person is hitching a lift now, how can you just leave him? He needs a lift. This was the shafqat that was in his life, in his heart, and this consideration that he had. This is also not a masla issue, but he always thought first of others. Unfortunately now, our situation is very different. One of the things, as I said, is not a masla issue, but he was not fond of brides. And the issue behind it was that it is known that if there's a bride taking place, then the fragrance of that goes right through the whole neighborhood. And his thinking behind it was that there are many people living in the neighborhood who cannot afford this, who would never probably have something like this in the whole year. But now they will also smell something happening, and this is going to bring certain feelings in them, that I'm deprived of this and this person can have it. So to avoid that pain to somebody else's heart, he was not fond of this. He was something, as I said, not a masla issue. It's not something that is a fatwa or something. But again, the lesson of this consideration for others, this is something that was very, very deep in his heart. And whether it was somebody who wanted help at the late hour of the night, whether it was a help of some advice, whether it was some other financial issue, but he had an ajib heart. He could not refuse anybody something. So this was that same heart that he had which made him now give his name. Now he says at that time he used to very fondly mention this. Very fondly is a very big word on this note. That he would say that I was a standard 9 failure. It was something out of 90 students, 60 were failed. Whatever something happened, so he was also out of that 60 that were failed in that standard 9. So he decided this is enough. There was a lot of encouragement to continue and redo that year. But he said enough is enough. And this happened just at that time. So he stood up and he gave his name, that I will join. So the people asked him, what you going to help? 17-year-old he was at that time. What you going to assist as a 17-year-old youngster? He said, I don't even know. I'll ask him after this now what he wants from me. So in any case, the program was over. Haji Bhai Padya Rahmatullah says that now they're going to be going to Amzinto. From Durban they're going to going to Amzinto, so he must join them. So he said, very well. My grandparents used to live in Amzinto at that time too. So he thought, very well, I'll get a chance to go and visit them. So he jumped in. And when they came to Amzinto, so Haji Bhai Rahmatullah says that, well, tonight we're going to sleep in the masjid. I'm going to sleep in the masjid. Now this was an extremely strange thing for him. Because nobody used to ever sleep in the masjid. It was only i'tikaf. And that i'tikaf also sometimes one person only. I remember in Durban one masjid, he was showing me the few things. One old picture there was there of something of the masjid, the previous masjid that had been then demolished and rebuilt. So he says in that old masjid, here was the mic, the azan mic. And on the azan mic he's giving one incident that every Ramadan, when the time for i'tikaf would come, then one person would get ready for the i'tikaf. Whoever it might be, not even the same person. After a lot of coaxing, one person would get ready. One of the things, among the things that they would give him, the hidayat. The hidayat will be to come and show him, where's the mic, where's the switch for it. That at night, anything happens, you come shout in the mic. Because it was like taken for granted, some jinnat are going to trouble him, or something is going to happen. So this is his now escape route. You just come to switch on and you shout in the mic. Somebody will come help you. So this was the issue, that nobody could imagine anybody staying in the masjid. Now Haji Sahib Rahmatullah said to him that I'm going to be staying in the masjid. All these thoughts, he says, started crossing my mind. This man is going to stay in the masjid alone? How am I going to leave him alone? I can't leave him alone. Again that heart filled with compassion, that he is 17 years old and this elderly person is going to, whatever his age was at that time, Haji Bhai Rahmatullah, but now I can't leave him alone, whatever it is now, but I'm going to have to give him company. So as a result, he stayed over. And then he mentioned the whole incident about late at night, how Haji Sahib woke up and he noticed, he went and made wuzu, etc. and came, and he was now just still in his sleeping bag or whatever, pretending to be sleeping, but he's observing what's going on. And then for 1 hour, Haji Sahib was engaged in, after some nawafil, in dua for 1 hour. And in that dua, he wept from beginning till end. And in that dua, Allah says that I heard him make some dua for me also. Now which dua, Allah knows best which dua gets answered for who, and where it can take a person. So in any case, this was again an incident of dua that he took. And then he continued taking these duas. For a long time, he was among the very first people that joined Haji Sahib on his safar. In any case, this was the journey into his next phase of life. That was towards the end of his schooling. And then he moved on to Darul Uloom Deoband, which was a time of great sacrifice, very difficult conditions. He has discussed this in detail in many places. There's no time to go into those details, but they studied under very, very trying conditions. I remember when the first time after I had gone to Darul Mazadbal, and he had come, so I took him along to show him our room. So now, those who have seen Azadbal, because of the extremely cold winters, so the rooms are designed in such a way that every room, which is for our 10 students, so there's an attached bathroom and toilet with it. So he walked in, and said, MashaAllah, you all are living in 5-star conditions here. And then he mentioned some about the aspect of they stay in Darul Uloom Deoband. And one of the things that he mentioned at that time, that in winter it used to be so cold, and at that time there was no arrangement from the madrasa side for breakfast. You do your own thing for breakfast. Perhaps it's still the same now, Allahu Alam. So they would make their own tea on a primer stove. That primer stove, you put paraffin in it, and you go to, in any case, that primer stove, so the tea would be made in an enamel mug. It would be so cold that while sipping the tea or you eating something, then you leave the tea on that lit stove. Because you keep it down for a half a minute or 1 minute, the tea will already be cold. In that kind of condition. And then the food was the food of the madrasa prepared on the standard of the local students, which was a very difficult thing for foreigners to eat. But that was it. And that is what they lived with. But this Qurbani then went on. Alhamdulillah, finally the time came when he Among the very close asatiza, alhamdulillah, he had been very close to all his ustads, from those who had studied in his time with him. Hazrat Mufti Sulaiman Pandor Sahib was one of his colleagues, and many others among those who are still alive, Hazrat Mufti Sulaiman Sahib. So, any case, from what they mentioned once, that he used to be very close to his asatiza, very involved in their khidmat. Among the asatiza was Hazrat Mufti Mahmud Gangohi rahmatullah alayhi. What we had witnessed ourselves when Hazrat used to come to South Africa, especially in the early days, before, when Hazrat became very much more known in South Africa, but when he came in the early days, when Hazrat Sheikh rahmatullah alayhi came for the first time, and then he used to come regularly, for a good amount of days, it would be only Hazrat Moulana taking him around the whole of KZN. And he would be in his khidmat, and throughout, and very close attachment, lot of du'as, lot of opportunities of khidmat that he grabbed with both hands. Then among his asatiza was Hazrat Sheikh Fakhruddin rahmatullah alayhi. Hazrat Moulana used to talk very fondly of him. And he used to be very much in his khidmat. There were many occasions when Hazrat Sheikh Fakhruddin rahmatullah alayhi had made safar in India. He had come to Gujarat. He had been invited for the iftitah of Bukhari Sharif in Tadgeshwar, etc. So Hazrat Maulana used to accompany him on these asfar. And throughout the safar he used to be in his khidmat, etc. And there are many incidents he used to mention about him. Just one incident that comes to mind, which is all linked that these are the personalities that he took that face from. Says Hazrat Fakhruddin rahmatullah alayhi, he was 94, 95 years old at that time. And he used to teach Bukhari Sharif, the first jild. So the madrasa time that he was required to teach was 1 hour in the day. That was the official time that he was required to teach, the one period. So he used to teach that one period. And then for the bulk of the year, from 8 o'clock at night till midnight, on the dot at 12 o'clock, he used to stop the sabak. 4 hours in one stretch, sitting in one hayat. He used to describe the manner he used to sit also, with his elbow on the desk and leaning his chin on his palm on his fist. And he would just sit at that age, 94, 95 years old, and 4-hour dars he would give. And this was his karamat, which I heard from Hazrat Abdul Hamid Sahib down barakatuhum many times as well, that because of his age, etc., he could not keep his wuzu. Sometimes in one salah he would repeat his wuzu several times. So the Muftiyan told him also, you already mazur, you can continue, but he used to still insist on repeating his wuzu. But his karamat was that he used to give that dars of 4 hours with one wuzu. Any case, the one incident that was actually meant to be, which came to mind was, which Hazrat Maulana used to mention this many times. I cannot recall exactly how many times, but I heard it from him directly many times. And he says once Fakhruddin rahmatullah alayhi he was very ill, so he still taught that whole 4 hours. When that 4 hours finished, and he says without any watch in front of him, exactly when it was that 12 o'clock, without looking at any watch, any clock, he would say, Ab to Maulana Sahab bahut thak gaye, Allah Allah khair sallah dua kar lo. That was his takya kalam at the end of the dars. So he says that day he said, Maulana Sahab aaj to bahut thak gaye, aaj to bahut thakan ho gayi. Any case, Maulana Sahab, etc., some other sathis, they used to carry him, put him on the wheelchair, bring him to the room. So when they brought him to the room, so Maulana says that I said to him, he was very close to him, some degree of betakallufi as well. So he said, I said to him, Hazrat, aaj itni thakan bhi thi, ab bimar bhi hai, to aaj chutti kara lete. Today you should have just made chutti, you are not well as well. So this is something that Maulana used to always bring this up for this point. So he says his reply was, that, Arey Mauli Sahab, hum to dunya ke kutte hai, tankha lekar padhate hai. He says this was his response to that 1 hour he was teaching full, plus this 4 hours of his own accord, and this was his response, hum to dunya ke kutte hai, tankha lekar padhate hai. So these are the type of personalities that he took this benefit from. On this note, we are talking about du'as. He took a lot of du'as of Sheikh Fakhruddin rahmatullah alayhi. And he had great i'timad in his asatiza. And he took their nasihat to heart. This brings us to another lesson as well. I want to explain that when finally the time came for him to return to South Africa,